Welcome to the Live Like Eden podcast. I'm your host, Lindsay, and I'm thrilled that you're here. Years ago, out of nowhere, I found myself in a radical shift in consciousness that took me over 20 years to fully wrap my head around. Yes, that's right. It took me a long time, and without any warning, down the rabbit hole of darkness I went. Now I'm here to share with you all the insights of awakening, spirituality, health, the energetic world we're living in, and my absolute favorite topic, just how crazy the ego mind can be. These subjects are designed to help you understand the awakening process, to open your mind, and prepare you for your own unique spiritual journey toward inner peace. So I invite you to sit back, relax, and enjoy today's discussion. Before we get started with today's show, I want to share with you something I've been working on. I have created a quiz just for you to see where you are on your own unique spiritual path. Everybody loves a quiz, right? You can go to my website at livelikeeden.com, click on the quiz pop-up, and answer 10 quick questions. You'll get an immediate response emailed to you with your results, a personalized podcast playlist including 5 Live Like Eden episodes that will offer you assistance where you currently are. And I've also thrown in a few bonus episodes that you'll receive a few days later. If you're a spiritual junkie, you're in the midst of awakening, or you're simply curious where you might be in your own spiritual process, check it out and feel free to share with your friends who might be interested too. Welcome back to the show, everybody. Today, we're going right into cults. I have this thing where when I see how many cults are out there, and it seems like today there's so many documentaries and stories floating around about various cults, whether they be religious cults, spiritual cults, yoga type cults, satanic cults, sex cults. I mean, there's really all kinds of cults. I know that if you look it up, they specify it's particular to religion. But I like to think that any organization with a charismatic leader or a group of people leading that come up with a system could potentially be a cult. I think from a young age, I've had a big aversion to groupthink. This is just me. I don't like groups. I don't like it if somebody says you need to wear this color to this meeting. I will never attend that meeting, So when I see large groups of people that fall into this, I like to say it's a little bit of a trance. I think the leaders of cults know exactly what they're doing. And they speak in a way that's very mesmerizing, isn't it? I always wonder how people fall for this. And I think it's important to point out that some of the leaders are very talented in their use of hypnosis, in their use of trance, as a means to lure people into sort of a sleepiness, right? I mean, if any of you have heard of MK Ultra, that's a whole mind control thing. And if you're not aware that it's happening and everything that the cult leader is saying sounds amazing, you are all in, right? Because they promise you all kinds of things. You're the chosen people that are going to save the planet. That's a common theme in almost every cult. How the leader knows that, I have no idea. You talk about a big ego. The ego is totally running these people. So I recently was able to watch a documentary on, I think it's Amazon. I'll link it in the show notes for you, called Breath of Fire. It's about Yogi Bhajan, who came from India and supposedly brought Kundalini yoga to the West. So I want to go over this whole scenario, and then I want to go over Scientology. I had a chance to watch a lot of Scientology documentaries and insight into what's really going on in there. Wow. I don't know if any of you know about it, you've looked into it, you've been involved in it, but that is a system. And I think it's important to point out that most cults have very compartmentalized systems in place. So do you think that when you join an organization that you think is amazing, they're going to share with you all the horrible information up front? Like hell no, right? There's a whole introductory package that they present to you. How amazing it's going to be, how you're going to save your life, you're going to better yourself, and not only that, you're going to be responsible for bettering everyone else on the planet. So these concepts tend to sell. People, when they hear they're going to do good, right? They're going to do good things. People who are into that are going to jump on board. And nothing could possibly go wrong in this organization, right? They're full of loving, peaceful people until you get in and go a little deeper into the organization. And then, oh no, you start recognizing some things that you don't want to know. So in this documentary, Breath of Fire, if any of you have watched it, they start off by saying that Yogi Bhajan, who's from India, comes over, I think he starts in Canada, and then he comes to the Western United States. And he's coming by himself. He has nothing, supposedly, and he forms a massive following about Kundalini yoga. Now, my first red flag to this whole thing is, how does a guy come over from India to a country he's not familiar with and start a massive following? To me, that's a massive red flag. I don't know about any of you, but let's say that you were a loner that went over to India, this country that you're not familiar with, and you started a massive movement. Like, how would you do that? If you have no financial backing, how are you going to do that? So my first question to this whole situation that started is, how does this guy get over here, start a massive following with nothing? My spidey sense says somebody's backing him. Someone either brought him over here, our government, I don't know who, but something is behind him. It is so hard to start something huge, right? So hard. So anyway, that's my first thought is, how does this even happen? Second of all, he claims that he's bringing Kundalini yoga to the West. Well, Kundalini is something that's been around for thousands and thousands of years. We're talking about the dormant energy, they call the serpent or the snake, at the base of the spine, that is waiting to go up your spine through all the chakras, up through the top of your crown chakra, and create a self-realization or a union with the divine. That's what Kundalini is about. So whether he made up some yoga system to try to get this Kundalini to start within you, maybe he did that. But to say that he started Kundalini is completely false. But, when you're an American and you got somebody from India bringing information over here, you just believe them. Like, nobody's looking into his background. Most people just believe him. And they're very charismatic, right? He's selling it like he knows exactly what he's talking about. And he very well may know what he's talking about. Every organization or cult always has some sort of allure. They're trying to pull you in and bait you, right? So with Yogi Bhajan, he created an organization called 3HO, which really stands for Health, Happiness, and Holiness. So he starts this organization. Again, I'm going, how? With what money? But anyway, starts it. It's a organization that's committed to your well-being. Well, that sounds amazing, right? Sign me up. I want health, happiness, and holiness in my life. Most people do. This organization is dedicated to teaching Kundalini yoga to the public. So what's basically happening here is they're using the teachings of Kundalini yoga to create this health, happiness, and holiness within your being. And it seems totally amazing, right? Seems great. I mean, what could go wrong? So when you enter this organization, this is what you're presented with. That you're going to eat well, that you're going to do a lot of yoga, that you're going to ignite this energy within you so you can become self-realized, that you're going to participate in meditations and all of these things to make you connect with your true being. So you become enlightened, right? Usually in cults, there's this message that you're going to reach your highest potential. You're going to be an enlightened being. This is typically what most cults are selling on some level. This is why people join them. They want to discover their larger self. So in this sense, you can understand why people get excited about it. Sounds like a great thing. Not only am I going to experience my most expanded state of spirituality, but I'm going to save people. I'm going to help other people along the way. We're going to make the planet better. All of these things sell. Are they true? Well, I'll let you decide that. So even within this very soft, loving message, if you're like me, you can kind of see the manipulation already beginning. Because what happens when somebody is selling you something? And this goes for like people selling product, people selling anything in business. What do? They make you feel amazing first, right? You're an amazing person. You're so beautiful. You have so much potential. You would be great at this, right? This is how they do it. They stroke your ego. So you see the manipulation. They're baiting you, and they know exactly what they're doing. Because once you get inside, there's going to be a whole bunch of other rules, routines, expectations that they are not presenting to you up front. So there's a little bit of a lie going on, right? And the people that are doing this are either totally naive. If they're trained underneath the leader, they're just completely naive and they believe the whole thing. Or they know exactly what they're doing. They're master manipulators. They're narcissists in a way, because everything they do is to throw it onto you. No matter what it is, you are 100% responsible for whatever happens in this organization. And this is how they make you feel bad. This is how they keep you in, because you start believing that you could be the problem. So here are some of the things that Yogi Bhajan kind of promised to his followers. This is what he was selling. He promised that you would find your soulmate. So he would like grant you a soulmate. But what's interesting about this soulmate situation is that he was in charge of finding your soulmate. So he was setting up arranged marriages within the cult. He single-handedly was the authority. It was like he was the third person in the marriage. Isn't that weird? I mean, do you want somebody deciding who your soulmate is, if you believe in soulmates? Do you think somebody else should tell you who it is? Like, how the hell would they know? Like, do they feel the connection you have with someone else? I wouldn't think so. So this is something he promised. And, people who are looking for a soulmate to complete them, and I went over this in last week's episode about singlehood, is the idea that you're not whole until you find somebody else to complete you, which is a complete myth. But anyway, it sells. People want to find a love. They want to feel loved by someone else. Again, this is all coming from the ego, which is interesting when you're in some sort of a spiritual cult, right? It's always interesting to me. They're selling you sort of this spirituality, this soulmate, yet they're really using the ego to do it. And nobody recognizes it until later. Another very interesting characteristic of this group of Yogi Bhajan's, the 3HO community, was that everyone is required to wear white. I'm going to tell you a story about, 20 years ago, maybe more. I was teaching a lot of yoga, and a yoga instructor approached me one day and said, "Hey, do you want to go to this women's meeting?" Inside, I'm going, no, I don't want to do any of that, which is just me. I don't do groups. But anyway, I didn't want to offend her. And so I said, "What is it?" And she's like, "Oh, it's just we get together and we talk about things in the world." And I thought, okay, well, I'll go check it out. Then she says to me, "Well, do you mind wearing white?" And my radar inside is going, what the hell do I need to wear white for? I'm somebody who immediately questions stuff. And I thought, okay, well, maybe I'll wear white. So I go check out this meeting. And I have to be totally honest with you. To this day, I have no idea what this meeting was about. It was like just a bunch of women sitting around talking about how you shouldn't say no to your significant other or your spouse. And I'm going in my head, what? I'm totally not doing that. Anyway, I don't really know where this group was going because I never went back. But just these weird things like wear white. So Yogi Bhajan's group of thousands of people, right? We're talking lots of people. They wear white because it's supposed to expand your aura about a foot all the way around you. How do we know that's true? Everybody's got their own energetic auric field, but does it really matter what I physically put on to expand this field? Couldn't I get in touch with my auric field wearing some gray sweatpants? I mean, again, these are just things that I think of. Maybe you don't think anything of them, but to me, it's like, why do 1,000 of us need to sit in meditation and wear white? And then the other thing they do is cover their head in white, it's like a white cover to focus the energy of the third eye. Again, can you focus the energy of your third eye without a hat on? I mean, I've certainly felt energy in my third eye, and I'm not putting on anything special. I didn't put on a robe or shave my head or anything like that. I'm not sure if there's any truth to any of what they're pushing, other than that it's more of a system of control, right? He's saying everybody needs to do this and watch them do it. I say what you do, they do it. They follow it. They don't question it. He knows he can control them. And that might be all this is. And lots of cults do it. They make you look a certain way. They want to tear your identity down. That's the other thing they're doing, is they want you all to look the same so you disconnect from the identity that you walked in there with. That's a huge thing in cults. They're breaking you down, trying to get you to disconnect from your former beliefs, morals, thoughts, so that they can build you into what they want you to be. The sad part about all of this is that a lot of people don't even know it's happening. They don't realize they're being broken down. Another part of this is they will manipulate you into believing that everyone you've ever been identified with is not good for you. They don't want you associating with your family, with your friends, anyone in your former life. The reason is those people are going to start questioning what you're doing. And then you will do the same. You'll start questioning the group. Then they risk losing you. The further you got into Yogi Bhajan's group, he had very strict routines and standards about what you would do every day, what you would eat, the yoga routines that you would do. I think there was a lot of people that were being abused in terms of doing labor work in the community, doing all of these duties and getting paid nothing for them. So you're in the cult, you're bettering yourself, but you're also a slave. That happens. And many people just justify that this is what I need to do. This is the sacrifice I need to make to reach that state of spiritual enlightenment. This might be one of my favorite promises that he made and sort of put out there. He said that those who utilize and follow his teachings will rule the world for 5,000 years to come. What? My first thought is, what's up with needing to rule the world? Like, if you're on a mission to become spiritually enlightened, aren't you disconnecting from your own body in the world itself? What's the need to control and rule the world? Where did he learn that he was in charge of all this? Like, did somebody tell him, your ideas are amazing and you're going to rule the world? Like, where do you come up with this? This kind of personality is just like a narcissist high on themselves, right? And they know everything. If you've ever been around a narcissist in your life, they're never wrong. You can't possibly challenge Yogi Bhajan on this thought, even though in your mind you're going, what the hell is he talking about? But people within the organization believe it. They are going to have that much influence over the world, and they're going to bring health, happiness, and holiness to everyone. Well, what if people don't want any of that, right? Why do they think they know what's best for everybody? Again, these are just questions that come into my mind and hopefully come into your mind when you come across these types of organizations. Here's another good one. And I've heard this in the New Age community too, not just through Yogi Bhajan. But he said this: all they need is just 2% of the population to practice, and the frequency of the planet will change. The world will heal. How does anybody know this? I'm being serious. How does anybody know that you only need 2% of people putting a positive frequency out to change the entire world? If that's the case, I know there's a lot of people on the planet who want to do good. There's probably at least 2%. Do you see the entire world changing before your eyes? I mean, we're still all living in our own mental projection. Each person has a different idea of what they see in front of them. There is no group agreement on what we're looking at in the public because everybody has their own opinion on everything. Talk about specialness, right? They're actually catering to your ego because they're saying you're special. You're part of the chosen few to make an absolute change in the world. And people who are feeling like they want to be part of something bigger than themselves are all over it, even if it's not even true. The way they sell it to you is that it is true, but nobody asks any questions. And if you do ask a question, I guarantee you're going to get kicked out or they're going to treat you very poorly. I've seen this notion in the New Age world where they'll say, all we need is a few more people and we're all going to ascend. It's like, where are you going? Ascend where? We're all on the planet, right? Now, if you reach inner realizations of things, that does not mean that you're physically going somewhere. And I think there's a huge misinterpretation out there where people are believing that they are ascending into some other dimension where they're physically not going to be here. I'm thinking, people, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about waking up within yourself where nothing changes on the outside. But people want to see change on the outside because the ego is so addicted to the world. The spiritual part of our mind, which is the representative of home in God, has nothing to do with the dual world. So do you see the difference here? You see where the ego is creeping into these movements and people don't even see it. They think it's spiritual. Another thing that Yogi Bhajan was big on was lots of prosperity meditations. Like, you're going to have a lot of money. We're going to have a lot of money. I mean, he started, I think, Yogi Tea. He started a bunch of companies. Again, I don't know how. I don't know where he's getting the money to do all this. And what's interesting about it is they're having these money manifesting meditations. Meanwhile, half the community's busting their ass working in their facility making $0. So eventually you're going to question this, like, this doesn't make any sense. They're not paying us, yet they're sitting here telling me that I can manifest money if I just do these meditations. This is another thing that's out there. It sells big time because people want money. Who doesn't want a lot of money? Your life would be a lot easier, right? If you don't worry about money, you can do whatever you want. So that's a big selling point. Doesn't mean it has an ounce of truth to it. Here's another interesting thing that he did is if you were married within the group and you started having children, your children were going to be sent to schools in India. He didn't want these children to have any American influences. Now, do you find that interesting? Here's a man who's come from India to America to prosper. He's making tons of money over here, yet doesn't want you to send your children to American schools. I find that very hypocritical. So what's it really about? What is that about? I'm taking your kids and I'm sending them to school to be indoctrinated under what I think they should know in India. Meanwhile, stripping the parents of any rights over their children. Parents are just doing this, letting their kids go to India with no supervision, and they have no idea how they're being treated, what they're learning. They don't know anything. I mean, can you imagine doing that? Any of you who have children, can you imagine just saying, well, I trust Yogi Bhajan and I'm going to just send my kids wherever he thinks is best for them? Because that was happening. Really what this was boiling down to was total control of the children. So they're being raised in this cult. They will have no American influence and they can control them. And they can control them for life because they're bringing them up. These kids don't know any different. If you're raised in a cult, you don't know. Your parents put you in there. You have no idea that there's any other way of thinking in the world or any other way of being. And then there's one other thing that was really common within this group was they conducted a lot of really large group meditations. Now, I think meditation is great, but I think you should be very careful when you go into very large group meditations. The reason I'm saying this is many of the leaders of the meditation are versed in mind control. They're versed in trance-like states and hypnosis. And if you're not aware, they're lulling you into what they want you to believe, how they want you to be, how they want you to behave, how they want you to listen and follow the rules of the cult. I'm not saying this happens in every group meditation, but I would say that in these large group meditations that are being led by a leader who has an agenda, that you should be very careful, that you should really remember that you still have total control over your own mind, because they will make it feel like you don't, because again, they're breaking down your identity. Any of you who've ever heard of MK Ultra, which is the government's use of brainwashing people, I mean, you know what I'm talking about. This is a very real thing. People that are versed in this can absolutely use it to brainwash their followers. Now, of course, the other horrible thing going on within Yogi Bhajan's cult that was very secretive was that he was sexually abusing some of the women. And this happens all the time. They're always sexually abusing the women and men sometimes, or the children. There's always this use of power. They take total advantage of the people closest around them. They usually zero in on whomever they're interested in, right? And they make those people feel special, that they're the right-hand man, and then they end up abusing them. And this can go on for years and years and years before these people even speak up, because it's so manipulative. And of course, this is not sold to the rest of the group. It's very compartmentalized. For those of you that followed the Nexium cult with Keith Raniere, you know, he had a whole human potential movement where people were bettering themselves and all this stuff. And then he had another group, like a woman's group, that he claimed was for the benefit of women. Yet within it, he's sexually abusing them and branding them and all this stuff. So there's always a secretive element in all of these organizations, and they're very good at hiding it. So overall, Yogi Bhajan was very popular for a long time, and he did pass away. I can't even remember when. Maybe it was like early 2000s. He does have somebody else in his place who's still continuing with the 3HO organization. So this is still a thing. I have no idea today if they're still very cult-like. I don't know, but it was really interesting to watch the documentary. And again, like I said in the beginning, I'll link it in the show notes if you have any interest in watching it. It's amazing how people can be manipulated, brainwashed, completely torn apart to believe something that somebody wants you to believe. I don't know what's happening in the people who start believing it, if they're in a very difficult phase of their life, if they're lost or they're just seeking. I think this happens a lot. There's a lot of people seeking spirituality, and they're looking for something greater than themselves. And there's nothing wrong with this. This is what we all do. We're all seeking something greater. But to be manipulated like that kind of makes me mad. You know, when I see it happen, and the people that really get abused and destroyed from this, their lives are ruined, and the leader will never admit fault. And there you have it. That's how you know it's a cult. Never willing to admit they did anything wrong, because in their mind, they're completely justified in all of their actions. This leads me to Scientology, which actually did become a religion and was granted tax-exempt status. Scientology was founded by L. Ron Hubbard. I don't know if any of you are familiar with him. He wrote a very controversial book called Dianetics in the 1950s, maybe even came out in 1950. L. Ron Hubbard really believed that the human mind, the subconscious and conscious mind could be healed, that you could be ridden from all of your past memories and traumas from this life and other lifetimes, and you could sort of reach a state of clear, he called it clear, and reach a state of spiritual enlightenment as well, that you could sort of graduate. The interesting part about it is that he used a machine, like an energy machine. I cannot remember the name of it, but he used some kind of energy machine where if you start telling your past memories, the machine registers your energy and then dictates to you whether you still have the memory or you don't. And what he created within this system of Scientology was what is known as auditors. And an auditor is operating this energy machine. And you, as a Scientologist, if you join, are required to go in and meet with an auditor regularly to go through basically your entire life. And you're basically leaving everything up to the auditor, who's in total control, and the machine to say whether you've gotten past these memories or not. Again, my red flag is going off like, really, this machine is going to tell me that I'm free of all my past memories that have been blocking me, and this person on the other side is dictating whether that's true or not? And the other interesting thing is that you have to pay for these sessions. You don't just join and go in and they're free. No, the church has to make money, right? Again, another red flag. You have to do this and you have to pay money to do it. And this could take years because within the Church of Scientology, there's a huge hierarchy and system involved that you're trying to reach the top. And it's called the Bridge of Total Freedom. It's kind of a roadmap in Scientology. And there's levels, and you have to go in and you purchase these courses at each level. So again, you're forced to pay money to learn and do all these courses until you reach that path of total freedom or spiritual freedom or enlightenment, whatever you want to call it. I don't know about you, but if I have to pay money, and I'm not talking about a couple $100s, I'm talking about people that have spent over $250,000 over the years they've been in Scientology and still haven't reached the top. Can you say scam? I mean, who dictates that in order for you to achieve a spiritual level, that you must purchase these courses? And then a lot of people who've left the church have commented on that you'll go through all these levels and then they'll change it. And then they'll say, oh no, we got to bring in a new level here because we're wrong. So then you got to purchase more and more and more. And it never ends. You're always buying more courses. And everything's from L. Ron Hubbard. And you're learning all of these policies of the church. You're learning all the rules. I mean, what an operation. Like if you're running the Church of Scientology, because L. Ron Hubbard did pass away, and the new leader of Scientology, which I believe is still running today, his name is David Miscavige. He's like the Pope in the Catholic faith. I mean, he's single-handedly the leader, which I'm assuming very few people have access to. Because again, they've set up all these compartmentalized systems. They even have a group of people who, if they don't want to spend all that money, but they want to devote their life to Scientology, I forget the name of it, but they join this group and it has to do with some kind of sea organization. And they literally live and breathe Scientology 24/7, but they're locked in a compound. They have no contact with the outside world. I mean, it's really interesting. I was watching documentaries of people who've gotten out of the church that were basically sharing this information. So getting back to this concept of auditors, and that an auditor, what they're really doing is trying to eliminate what the church calls engrams. And the engram is basically that embedded memory or the mental images that you're holding on to from the past. When you go through your auditing sessions, the whole goal is to eliminate these engrams so that you can reach a state of what is called clear. That you have none of these memories anymore. Now you're clear. Now you're climbing that bridge, right, that I mentioned before, the bridge of total freedom. And as you keep climbing, you become clearer and clearer and clearer, and you reach eventually the top of spiritual freedom, which I'm assuming very few people do because it's impossible. There's so many courses to take, so much money to spend. I'm sure you all know there's a lot of celebrities that were involved with Scientology. And they have like a whole celebrity center in Los Angeles. And once they achieved tax-exempt status, they were literally purchasing real estate all over the world. So they were raking in money, and they're raking it in by the followers and members of the church. And they're brainwashing them into believing that they have to go through these courses in order to get to this state of awareness. Which, by the way, no one in any of the interviews ever reached. And one lady who got to a really high place said she never felt total freedom. That wasn't part of it. All she did was go through the courses. It wasn't like she reached some perfect place of peace. Again, it's a controlled operation. It's a brainwashing way to keep you in so that you pay money to the organization. The other thing that they've set up, which is brilliant in a way if you're a cult, I mean, it's disgusting, but these people are not dumb. People who run these huge, massive organizations are brilliant, probably, but they're using their brilliance nefariously. They create systems in place and they tell everybody who's a member of Scientology that if somebody around you is questioning the church, is not following the rules, you need to file a report against them. You need to rat them out. Can you imagine that? Now we're ratting out people that we know in the church, whether it's family or friends. You're ratting out the people you love who might be questioning the organization. Again, this is another way to control everyone in it, that you don't want to question the organization because they will come after you. And if you do question it enough and you do leave the church, they label you what's called a suppressive person. And the definition of a suppressive person, according to Scientology, which is basically an enemy of the church, the definition is a destructive person intent on harming others. This includes critics of Scientology. So if you were a member of Scientology and you want to leave, there is a department within Scientology that will come after you. They will harass you. They will say that you're wrong. They will make up stories about you just to keep the purity of the church. You can't question Scientology. That's the basic theme going on in there. You cannot question it, and you definitely can't question it in public. If you question it, you attack Scientology, you're the bad guy. See the manipulation? Same thing with Yogi Bhajan. They will flip reality onto you, that you're the problem. Even though there's some serious problems going on within the church, like reports of serious abuse from the leader of the church, beating up people around him, abusing them. But again, he's protected. He's got a whole department devoted to going on the attack. And this is how these operations work. They flip reality. And if you're somebody who's been in an organization like this for a really long time, and I feel really bad for people who have been, they are scared out of their mind. Total fear to come out, to leave because of what they're going to do to them. Again, it's a trap. It's a way they force you to stay in until one day you just can't do it anymore. And there's been plenty of people who just can't do it anymore and they've come out. And it's really interesting. You can watch, there's a whole series from Leah Remini, the actress who used to be on King of Queens, really funny show, who was raised in Scientology as a child and was involved in the organization for over 35 years. She put out a brilliant series. If you're interested, you can watch it. I think you do have to pay for it. I found it on Amazon. But there are some other free documentaries about what's going on inside of Scientology. So anytime you're involved in an organization and you can't question any part of it, huge red flag, right? Big red flag. Why can't you question it? I mean, I could say as a kid, I would question the Bible to my teachers in the Catholic faith. They just didn't have it. They didn't like it. Now, they weren't threatening me or kicking me out or anything like that. But still, the whole idea of questioning an organization, a religion, a guru, whatever it is, they don't like it. So they immediately do what? Flip reality. You're the bad guy, and they go on the attack. These are traits that you could pick up in people around you, because there are people who possess these traits. They will not admit anything they're doing. They will only protect themselves at all costs. When you think about these characteristics of these cults and the allure that they pull you in, it's kind of a bait and switch type situation, right? So with Yogi Bhajan, we've got the 3HO organization. You're going to go through Kundalini yoga and make your life amazing, healthy, happy, and holy. That sells. That pulls you in. There's the bait. In Scientology, it's selling you the fact that you could clear up your mental state, all the past memories and trauma that you've ever had, and you could reach a state of clear and graduate on their path all the way up to spiritual freedom. It's the same selling point, that you're going to reach a state of spiritual perfection. And we're going to get you there, and you're going to have to pay a lot of money to do it. Do you see how this works? I mean, the whole Keith Raniere thing, he's doing the same thing. It wasn't a spiritual thing, but it was a human potential movement. Now, there's a lot of that out there too, that you're taking courses for self-betterment, but you have to pay thousands of dollars to take these courses. Why don't you just go buy a self-help book for $20? You know? But no, it's a system that they implement. They bait you, pull you in, and then eventually there's the switch where it gets crazy. The leader starts exhibiting traits of complete narcissism, manipulation, fraud. And I don't know about any of you, but it always makes me really sad. And again, I just kind of get angry that people do this to other people. Like, I can't even imagine setting up some organization to manipulate other people into believing a bunch of crap and taking their money. Like, to me, that just sounds like the most immoral, unethical, horrible thing to do to somebody else. But unfortunately, we're living in the world. And so many people are looking out for numero uno, aren't they? They're looking for self-gratification. They want all the power, all the money, all the control at the expense of you. And if you're involved in any of this, you don't even know it's happening. So I hope today's show has shined a little bit of light on how these behaviors happen, how people can get involved in them, how they use that bait and switch scenario, and how this could be seen literally in business, in all kinds of things in the world. Maybe even somebody you're dating. It's really important to notice these traits. When somebody is trying to make you feel like they have all of the power to control you, they know what's best. You don't know anything. You need to listen to me. You need to dress this way. You need to take all of these courses and pay us a bunch of money. And it's all based on lies. I want to leave you with this today, to always remember that you have everything you need for your own spiritual recognition. You have all the tools to come to a real self-realization, and it doesn't need to cost a dime. It's within you. Everybody's granted this gift in life. So watch out for other people that are trying to convince you otherwise. So having said that, I hope you enjoyed today's show, and I will see you all next week. That'll wrap up today's show. Until next time, I invite you to check out my website at livelikeeden.com. You can sign up for a weekly email reminder when my new podcast and blog comes out, which is every Wednesday. If you are struggling with your own awakening process and you need further assistance or guidance, you can also sign up for a free consult, and I would be more than happy to work with you. If you're enjoying the show, I ask that you share it with others that you think it might benefit. Until next time, thank you so much for listening.